Hello, this is Tommy Yoon, director of Rahboeteck The Shadow Chronicles, and with me I have the screenwriter Ford Riley.
Hi there.
And the composer Scott Glasgow.
How you doing?
Now, what you're seeing right here is the iconic film strip rising up the screen, which is an homage to the opening of the original television series, and this is now leading into the crescendo into Ulpio Minucci's iconic theme.
Hi, this is Scott, and yeah, that's the theme that Ulpio wrote for the original TV series. They asked me to rearrange it, and that's what I ended up doing. Yeah, and I think the interesting part about that was the earlier footage had a very hard hit on the opening title, which later became this kind of cloud-clearing, kind of softer hit. And it changed the way I approached it. And here is my secondary theme, another main title theme for the new film.
Hi, this is Ford. Initially, we weren't sure whether this was going to be a TV pilot or a DVD or a feature film. So there's a scene that you'll see later on in the film that was written as a cold open or a prologue for the Shadow Chronicles. Once we decided that it was going to be feature length, it didn't quite fit.
And here you have the opening introductory paragraph. Now, originally in the 1985 animated series, we had J.J. Smith narrate a lot of the backstory, but unfortunately he had passed away, and we still needed to recap new fans in what had gone on before in the Rahboeteck universe. There's the Wolf Squadron logo, and you'll notice with this first shot here, what was originally traditionally cel animated in 1985 is now produced in CG. And there's a great debate among anime fans about the merits of using CG in mecha anime sequences. However, this opens up the option of much greater scale and scope in space battle sequences on a very tight budget. And here, with the humming, you notice a little homage to Reba West from the original series.
Yeah, sure thing, Marcus.
Yeah, you know, when I watched the show during its original run back in the 80s, I couldn't stand those songs. But at the same time, they got stuck in my head for days on end, and I ended up singing them to myself. It's something about Rahboeteck that gets stuck in your blood.
Heads up. We've got an Invid patrol approaching.
Oh, you were going to mention the reference?
I was. The whistling humming gag that we had here, it was a bit of a tip of the hat to the opening scene of the sci-fi series Red Dwarf. As a sci-fi aficionado myself, there are lots of small little sci-fi references in addition to the Rahboeteck themes throughout the script.
Now there's the first glimpse of the Invid. These are a holdover of the villains from the last episode of the original television series. And now we're entering into the backstory explanation. Sometimes I derisively call this the brain dump. I prefer not to have these, but this was obviously necessary because we had so much back history and continuity to cover for new viewers.
Right, and we also didn't have a narrator anymore. That was one of the decisions that had to be made before I even began writing the script, was that unlike in the TV series, the Shadow Chronicles wouldn't be able to do a previously on Rahboeteck sort of thing, so we had to find some other way to catch new viewers up on what the story was up to this point. The nice thing about this is that we do get to see the story from Marcus's point of view and set his character up, his sister, his relationship with Scott, which will certainly have an impact later on in the show.
You know, the story went through so many iterations in early story proposals, but the one central core group of characters that stuck through it all was Marcus, Scott Bernard, and the dead fiancée Marlene, which is now filled in by Ariel, his new love in this new film. And it comes down to this core relationship between these three characters, and it's not quite a love triangle, but it's like the mentor and the protege archetype that we've continued from the original television series.
Grace, what do you
You know, an interesting part. This is Scott again, the composer, and when they take off there, to go off on another subject for a second here, that was actually the main title rearranged in a completely different way right as they're about to take off. So it's kind of a fun moment for the music there, right before they race back to the base. Yeah.
So here we are at Moonbase Alice, spelled ALUCE from the original series, right?
Which is an acronym for Advanced Lunar Chemical Engineering or Civil Engineering. Now, in hindsight, this scene is a little bit too bright and soft for my tastes, but we had a very rushed production schedule of only about 14 months. And in light of the tight resources we had, I was very pleased with how the look turned out.
Now, we're coming up on a scene here where our two pilots go up to a cola machine, and it's intended to parallel a scene from the original series where there are two pilots checking out a female character. Here, though, we let the female character turn around and check out the two pilots as well. So a little flip there.
And there you see Maya Sterling, and yes, she is the sister of Dana. And here we have the original opening of the film, which we ended up moving elsewhere. The reason why we moved it here was the producers originally found it a little bit unsettling, which I felt was the purpose of the scene, but they wanted to enter into the film faster, so I actually called Ford in to help make structural changes to the opening of the film.
Wait, so you ended up calling up Ford to change the front. When I got the footage, this scene was actually still in there, and the music I wrote for that had to be rewritten.
Really? You had to rewrite the opening?
Yeah, I rewrote the music. So when they made this change, they called you to find a home for this little chunk?
They called me in. We had it at the beginning, as you saw, and then we had to figure out, well, what do we do with it? Because it still seemed relevant, and we still wanted to introduce our villains somewhere in the first, 10 minutes of the piece. But another little piece of trivia is that those guys, originally I sort of envisioned them as the inorganic sentries that the Rahboeteck masters referred to in Dana's story.
And actually, there's a little nod in there. You'll notice that they're operating in groups of 3.
Right, exactly. It's very cool.
Now, what you see here is a bit of foreshadowing of the Neutron S missiles, which figure greatly into the story later. And the General Reinhardt and the senior officers, they're bouncing off openly the ideas and the concerns about ethics of using a weapon of this destructive a magnitude. And also the design of the Neutron S missiles have been a little bit more chiseled, more in keeping with stealth geometrics that we're familiar with seeing today.
Now, coming up here, we're going to meet Vince Grant for the very first time. There he is.
Yeah, voiced by Richard Epcar.
Right. Now, when you're writing something, at least when I'm writing something, you imagine how the voices sound. You cast the characters in your head. I imagine the voice of Vince Grant as Dan Warren, who is actually the voice of General Reinhardt. And so this scene originally kind of threw me for a loop, hearing these two voices kind of flipped. And here comes Rick Hunter.
This is SDF-3. Come in.
And then actually that's where I bring in Upio's theme, too, to kind of show musically an homage to the past again.
Now, what was interesting about Rick Hunter's involvement in the decision to employ Neutron S missiles is that a lot of fans have argued over whether this was a big war crime that was being committed by using weapons of this destructive capability, and whether he should have been court-martialed. It's interesting what you'll notice fans argue about over the concepts within the film.
You know, Tommy, this scene was longer too, wasn't it? Because I remember there was something at the end of this. Oh, that's right. It had the jiggly eye, I called it.
Yeah.
Remember you had a little clip at the very end of the scene where it got close to Reinhardt's eye, wasn't it?
Actually, we still have that.
Something was changed.
It's a shaded. It's the dramatic shaded eye.
Oh, it's still there, but no, it was longer. Something happened because I remember I had to change that cue.
You know, actually, I know a lot of these scenes we did nip tucks, and we really tightened up the scenes quite a bit to improve the pacing.
Right. Which always makes my job completely difficult.
Yeah. Oh, is timing important?
Yeah, right. Sorry, I cut out 3/16 notes. Do you mind? Yeah, I do.
Vince Grant's ship here is called the Icarus, and in Greek mythology, Icarus was the son of Daedalus.
You'll see a little homage there.
Exactly.
Now, this is a new Battle Fortress design that we introduced specifically in this film. It's the Shimakaze class Battle Fortress.
Icarus, you are cleared for departure.
Now, here again, I just thought the lighting here was a little bit too front-lit, a little bit too flat, and we went through a couple of takes, but it was just one of those situations where we ran out of time. But with every situation where we thought things turned out a little flat, sometimes we get like these little gems where this hyperspace full jump effect that you're about to see, I thought was just absolutely wonderful. So
Yeah, and this is where we're bringing the big choir thing. Yeah, I like this. This is very different in the sketches though. In the line drawn scene.
Ah, that looks beautiful.
So, it has begun. Yes.
I'm back to these guys.
Yes, and you notice they're all in groups of 3. Ooh.
And there's my little homage to Hulse planets there for a second. You know, actually, this is a moment where I can talk about the light music of Marcus and Alex. It seemed that somewhere it was brought up, I think in early spotting, to kind of keep these guys, I don't want to say comedic music, because that would be a little bit too silly, but we did keep it in this light feel.
And that gasp you just saw just a second ago, that was actually Yuri Lowenthal improvising right there. He did such a wonderful job in terms of bringing confidence and character to the main character of Marcus for this film.
You're right. Maybe one of these days you'll be lucky enough to wear one. That is, if you're good enough.
The wink.
He's a tough one. Cute, but tough.
And Alex there, that was voiced by Arthur Santiago, who was also an excellent sounding board. He did a great job in terms of playing Marcus's foil.
Yeah, you know, all the actors did a really excellent job, and it was an interesting mix of the the original cast and these newcomers, but it seemed to blend really perfectly.
Now here you have Mark Hamill playing a cameo as Commander Taylor.
Commander Taylor, you know, if I knew he was going to be cast as Commander Taylor, I would have given him a lot more lines.
You know, actually, the Commander Taylor role was supposed to be a smokescreen because we really cast him as one of the Hate Knights, as the villain.
Right.
And, of course, we wanted to keep the fact that the Hate Knights were involved under wraps as long as possible. And so when we had to tell fans he was cast as something, we just said Commander Taylor. And, of course, at first some fans thought, oh, my goodness, they only used him for, 2 scenes? And now, as you hear the Invid coming up, you'll hear some of the original Invid audio effects. And here especially, this is a very iconic anime sound that we thought was very important to put back in to bring back some of the original audio texture from the original television series into this movie.
Now, Tommy, you know, this is an interesting part with the Invid and the music. I remember discussing with you how to differentiate between the different enemies, and this one being more natural and kind of filled with all the ethnic instruments and the exotic percussion, whereas the Hate Knights were supposed to be kind of a little more cold and direct. A more orchestral, I guess, is the way of putting it. Something I hope we continue with. You know, the Invid being...
Well, and you're about to hear it here in just a second here.
No.
Oh, well, yeah, this is the synth stuff. That was another idea, as to how to bring in kind of heavy synth and percussion, yeah.
Yeah, and to keep it all sounding very tribal versus
That's right.
very, very militaristic on the expeditionary side.
Yep. And you can hear the serpent and the cornetto kind of doing the war horns or the war fanfare themes and these kind of things.
Stop that, Alex.
Marcus, behind you! What?
Relax, I got it.
All right, that reaction I felt was just a beat too long, but we were kind of at a point where we had to lock the film down so you could do your job as well. But it still works well. It's where we have the first encounter between Marcus and Maya in battle, and this is where she gets to show him up, and it works into a nice little thread that Ford develops later in the story.
Thanks. I owe you one.
What? Looked more like 24 to me. But who's counting?
Well, actually, Marcus is counting, and we'll find that out a little later on.
Yeah, well, it helps when you've got a beta full of missiles.
Now, you notice in terms of the beta that it's something that the senior officers were using, and the rank and file like Marcus and Alex were just flying ordinary Alpha Shadow Fighters.
The 2nd, 3rd, and 5th divisions have reported extremely heavy losses, and I can't raise the 14th at all.
All right, coming up here, he's going to ask for Captain Harrington, which is
Contact Attack Group 1 on Earth now. Get me Captain Harrington.
a reference to the McKinney novels. And Reynolds is actually a nod to Kay Reynolds, who wrote the first 2 Art of Rahboeteck books.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's a nice little nod that I'm sure all the McKinneyist, the novelist fans would really enjoy.
And Scott Bernard. Finally a familiar face, but not to these guys.
He's been leading a resistance group on Earth. They've joined up with us to attack Reflex Point.
Now, this was an interesting challenge where we were trying to link up continuity with the end of the original Rahboeteck television series. And during the storyboarding process, we were haggling over whether to put him in a beta in which he was seen for much of the final episodes,
Right.
or the alpha-beta combination that he's seen in the final shot. And we found that if we had him switch aircrafts midway in the film, people would associate that with a completely different character, and they would get confused as to who's this other guy now. So we just decided to keep him in the alpha-beta fighter during the whole scenes.
So that's what happened. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Now we get into Ariel's.
Yeah, we actually had to post-process the scene brighter so that it would be okay to show it on standard network television and not get in trouble.
Yes, I remember.
So there are some details.
There's details under there.
Is there going to be a special edition with the details included?
Yeah, I guess in the version you haven't seen.
And she's extra glowy here, isn't she?
Yeah, you'll notice that. Yeah,
just from the neck down.
Yeah, exactly.
Very glowy. So here we have Marlene, or Ariel. And that was another thing that was tricky in developing this as a standalone, is what the heck is her name?
Yeah, it was because by the time the second Marlene was introduced in the original television series, the original Marlene, which was Scott's dead fiancée, had been dead for many episodes, and the audience was able to put her out of their mind. But here we're going to have both characters in the same film, and so we obviously had to separate them so that audiences wouldn't get confused. And we just standardized on one's Marlene, and one will just go by her invid name of Ariel from now on.
Here we are inside the Hive, and fans of the original series are probably going to wonder, where are Lancer and Sarah and Lunk and Annie from the original series?
Yeah, and if we included them, then we'd have to have a whole backstory of what they're up to, what is Annie up to, what kind of trouble is she causing.
Right, yeah. I mean, for Rahboeteck newcomers, it would just seem very strange to have a whole bunch of humans standing around in the Hive, that's supposed to be this alien stronghold. And another point I think that was made was that designing 4 characters for just a few shots, doing new character designs for all 4 of them would be a little cost prohibitive.
Well, it wasn't even cost prohibitive. It would just be, what would you accomplish with that distraction? And for all practical purposes, they're just off screen. If they're not in the film, it doesn't mean we killed them off or despise these characters. It just meant that they weren't really essentially furthering the core story for this film in itself.
This conflict will rage from generation to generation.
Yeah, something that you'll notice if you're watching the original series too about those 4 characters is that they do leave the Hive at some point, and then in a scene later they're all standing around next to the Regis again. So I'm not too racked with guilt about playing around with the Regis's dialogue here. Taking some liberties with it, obviously, but
We shall not leave it behind.
Here's more jiggly eye.
A anime staple.
Yes, I used to ask Tommy to actually reproduce a jiggly eye for me when we were working, and to be like, okay, there it is again. There's more jiggly eye. It's very hard to do. I don't know.
Attack wave 3.
Don't make me give you the jiggly eye.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm picking up strange
This was actually one of the first cues I finished. I didn't start at the beginning like a lot. I mean, a lot of times when you're writing music, it kind of, you watch a film and you kind of find places to start. And I remember this was the first cue that was finished, was the black hole cue. At least that's what I called it. I think on the CD it's called something else. But yeah, this is the first finished piece of music.
And this was important for me, from a scientific standpoint, that the black hole actually be white, so that it somewhat reflects what astronomers are learning now about black holes.
Nice touch.
Yeah, and this was important. You'll notice that the black hole is conceptually tied to what you'll discover about the neutron S missiles later. It's very subtle in the story of the film, but essentially the neutron S missiles are causing black holes, and this was the outcome of Rick Hunter's earlier neutron S missile test. And this was important for us to tie together because at one point Frank wasn't satisfied with the state of the story, and he was actually proposing that we just toss out the concept of neutron S missiles from the storyline completely. And we were like, oh, you can't do that because, obviously there's the continuity with the end of the original series. And by tying the black hole concept to the neutron S missiles, this kind of finally tied this rescue scene and the use of the neutron S missiles all a little bit more conveniently together.
Something very subtle that we did with Vince Grant, starting in the very beginning when we see him on the Icarus, is that he never sits down in the captain's chair and until a key moment in the final battle. It's something that's reflecting his reluctance to accept his role as a captain, his promotion as a captain. And we'll hear later that he feels that Rick Hunter gave him the promotion out of friendship. Not something that you'd necessarily pick up, but he's standing, and he'll be standing through most of the film.
He's very different from other senior officers where he's more take charge. He's almost reluctantly takes the command role, and he's one that would readily follow his troops into a battle situation, even when it's against his own good judgment.
Right, and we see that happening on more than one occasion early on, and it's not until later in the film that he decides he's in command, and he stops the ship, and you'll see that when it happens.
Now we have another little nod to the Protoculture Matrix, the Holy Grail from that was first introduced with the Rahboeteck Masters portion of the original Rahboeteck television series. And it's essentially the MacGuffin of our story, along with the SDF-3.
Yeah, one of the things are MacGuffin. One of the things that Frank Agrama, our executive producer and the co-writer of the screenplay, was really interested in was, why are they looking for Rick Hunter? Certainly the series ends with Scott Bernard going off to find Rick Hunter, but why? Why is it important that we find Rick Hunter? And the Protoculture Matrix being the huge power source is obviously a significant reason to find Rick Hunter.
Get the Fold systems back online. We still have to warn the fleet. But if we can get close enough to the SDF-3, I think we can bring her and the Protoculture Matrix back with us.
A lot of these battle sequences were heavily edited for pacing reasons, and I almost cut this sequence as well. However, you'll find some of this extra footage in the deleted scene section.
Yes, this is where Frank added the choir to the clamshell opening.
It's where after Scott had written the music, he actually pulled one of the choir stems and just put it right in there. That was one of the little touches that he wanted added in.
So now, is that choir from another piece of music elsewhere?
Right. Yeah. What Tommy said was a stem. It's basically when I give music, there's all this elements are somewhat separated, so you could actually take the choir out of another piece completely. And he just wanted choir there, and so they just snipped it out of some other. I don't even know where they got it from. It's one of the other pieces, and they just kind of snipped it and stuck it in there where the clam was opening, and I like it. It was a good call. It's just one of those things that happens, you know.
Oh, and that's the end of Mark Hamill's
Goodbye, Mark.
other role.
We barely knew ye.
Oh, and here comes the black blood.
Yeah,
you can't have red blood.
We had to make sure.
Flack on that, didn't you?
Actually, we got some flack on that, but you know what? We were careful enough with this that we still got a PG rating from the MPAA. So,
wow.
Hey, we did our homework on this one.
This is one of my more favorite moments with the music and everything. There's just a lot of it that's just a lot of, well, not now, but the earlier section before it was running around. It was very cool.
Sir, the Shadow Fighter squadrons are meeting in 10
You know, in the original series, there's a commercial break between when the battle is going well for the Expeditionary Force and when the tide has turned. You come back from a commercial break and suddenly they've got their backs up against the wall. We couldn't go to a commercial break here, so we actually had to sort of play out the actual battle, and I think it actually worked.
You know, I really like the music that you did on this sequence. It's the contrast of the Expeditionary Force and the Invid again.
Yeah. It's all sound effects here, though. It's all gunfights. I mean, you can't hear anything. It's just all. That's the one of the unfortunate things about music and action is that most of the time you're not going to hear the music until you hear the CD.
Now preparing Neutron S missiles for launch.
But you can't do action scenes without it too. It's the energy that kind of keeps the thread going.
Now, that split screen you just saw there is another little nod to the third generation of Rahboeteck, where they often did that to highlight which characters were in which mecha. And here we go with the Neutron S missiles. These are the largest devices ever built by the Rahboeteck Expeditionary Force. Unfortunately, we didn't have a shot in there to show scale against another capital vessel. And these designs, as mentioned earlier, have become more geometrically chiseled to make them a little bit more consistent with the stealth-derived designs of the Expeditionary Force.
Isn't this the first time we also hear Melissa sing? Is this the first cue, or was it I can't remember if it was the other Invid, or the other Regis scene, or this one, but one of these is one of the first times we hear Melissa Kaplan.
You know, actually, I think she was in a lot of the takes, but so that she wasn't competing with the dialogue of the Regis.
That's right.
We actually had to pull her back to like less than 10% so that we could hear the dialogue over her singing.
But I think this is the one where you do hear her, right?
Yeah,
a little
hear
bit.
her, but it's very subtle, and it was one of those unfortunate situations where her music was awesome, but her vocal range was just competing with the dialogue.
Well, it's on the CD.
Yeah.
Another plug for the CD, right?
Well, no, it's just that most of the time with any film I work on, the music, you know, it's an underpinning, but you don't hear the details until you get to the CD on most films I work on.
You know what I really like here is how Ford has interwoven the dialogue from the original television series right into these scenes. So there's a lot of overlap, which brings some continuity with what you've seen before.
That's true. We do kind of go back and forth between scenes and clips of dialogue that were from the actual series and the new stuff.
That is very cool. This is the example of the waterfall music coming in, or what I call waterfall music. It just feels like this kind of constant trickle of notes, and it's one of my. I really like doing stuff like that.
And it's vaguely reminiscent of the original score. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
I actually didn't listen to that. No,
you didn't even
I
listen to it.
Well, I think I did once, but I don't think I I watched the scene early on, but I didn't go back to it once I was writing the music for the scene.
It's really interesting.
I think it was that would be totally just fortuitous.
Just a coincidence.
Yeah, just coincidence.
Invid just ran away. That was too easy. That was all just too damn easy.
Did you do a lot of that? Looking back at the old scene, then I guess you had to because it was the dialogue.
I had to because I wanted the dialogue to match the original series.
Right.
So, there was a lot of back and forth for this first act.
Interesting.
That fisheye view of Alex you just saw earlier was a little another nod to anime styles and humor. Now, what we have here is Greg Snegoff actually voicing the awareness, and he did an unbelievable job. What's interesting is he did several takes, and we were playing around with sound effects and different things, and all of a sudden he held up a stack of paper against this Adam's apple, and he pulled off this voice naturally. It's a guy with amazing improvisational voice range.
Now, the Haydenites here refer to, everybody else, all their enemies, as protoculture addicts. And that's another little bit of trivia, that the Protoculture Addicts was the original Rahboeteck fan magazine. I believe so.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's the little Haydenite chord there for a minute. That'll pop up at the end of a lot of scenes where the Haydenites are talking, or even when Janice is leaving a room where later you'll hear it when she gets accused of being a Haydenite.
Now, this is another little touch. Deucalion is...
In Greek mythology, Deucalion was the son of Prometheus.
30 seconds starting now.
Coordinates are set, sir.
Attention. Space fold in T-minus 30 seconds.
Approaching SDF-3.
15 seconds to fold. 10,
SDF-3 now within
9,
range of fold speed.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Thank God.
1.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is just one of those shots that just didn't turn out as nicely as I hoped, although the explosion looks okay. But we just had a limited number of takes in what we could do for each shot with the CG.
Shall I abort the fold?
No, we can't delay. We must warn the fleet.
Commencing space fold.
Now, if you look very closely at the shot, this was a little touch where you'll notice the Haydenite ships disappear along with the Icarus.
Right.
And the last we see of the SDF-3. And Rick
Let's just hope there's still a fleet left to warn.
Poor Vince Grant following orders and...
And there's that Haydenite chord again, to kind of show the little Haydenite guys following along.
And now what you see here is a reference to SX.83. These are actually the 3 mounts from the Rahboeteck Masters portion of the original television series, but you'll notice that a big spherical section was carved out of it, as if a giant Invid hive had been occupying that spot, and now it's filling it with water, of course.
Scott never actually said goodbye to Ariel in the original series, so this, for me personally, was a really great scene to write. I really enjoyed it.
Sort of reminds me of the UN little commercial that was done with the mount. I mean, it's a different scene, but it kind of has a similar feel to it.
Yeah, actually, we used that setting, and we had a characters in a similar situation, but obviously this ties in with what fans wanted to see from the original television series, and it's a very touching moment.
Yeah, and this is one of the big themes too, I think, the Ariel theme, and working this out. And I remember playing this for you the first time. It was actually during the previous scene, but and I just was, I knew this was the one that had to be right on or something, and I remember kind of having you and Matt Freeman, the music editor, over and just kind of getting your feel on this. And it's the one we recorded live too. It's like, one of the few chunks that we just had to have everything live on this.
During the early screenings, this scene got some chuckles when he looks back at his plane, because like all the women are like, "Oh, that jerk, he's married to his job."
Still on alert.
And to make matters even worse, the Invid took all of the planet's...
So now here we have a setup of the bind that the Rahboeteck Expeditionary Force is in, is that upon leaving the Earth, the Invid have consumed all the remaining protoculture supplies, so all the Expeditionary Force has left is what's left on hand from their previous supplies. And until they get the MacGuffin, the protoculture matrix from the SDF-3, they're hosed.
For those of you who still have commanders,
MacGuffin.
I'm telling you, Alex, things would be a whole lot better if all...
I remember this being a difficult scene, Tommy. Do you remember there was something happened here? Oh, I remember I made it too heavy when Maya came in or something like that? Or...
Yeah, we wanted to keep a little bit of the humor in there.
But I remember when she pointed at him, I made it like much heavier or something.
I think it was because there was the reference to the death of Commander Taylor.
That's right. I just remember going through a few rewrites on this, and I couldn't remember exactly why it was.
And, there's some of the anime look in terms of the humor being carried through from the work of the animators. And, it all works together very organically, very well.
You're both Wolf Squadron. Oh, I'm sorry.
She's got great hair.
Thanks. He was a good man.
The hair was interesting. We went through a bunch of different drafts for trying to figure out the different characters' hair colors to easily identify them apart. Unfortunately, it's like two of our characters, during the different revisions, they ended up overlapping a lot, which was Ariel and Janice.
Yeah, a little red-pink kind of thing. But it's very color coordinated. Everyone's got their little brown, a little purple, a little bit of red.
It's one of the standards of anime where the hair colors and the eye colors of the characters often relate to also all the way to their mecha colors, so that you can tell the characters apart very easily that way.
I was going to say, Maya's jet is the same color as her hair, right?
Yeah, exactly. Falls right into that.
Up too easy, buddy. Now listen, if I were you, I'd go in.
Yellow alert. Unscheduled
And there's the Claxton. Is it called
Klaxon?
Klaxon, yeah.
You'll notice the other side of the Decalion is much more damaged than what you saw earlier, because that was the side that was facing the Neutron S missile test.
I don't know, sir, but the Earth is still here. That's good news.
And there we have more commentary by Eddie Frierson, who is playing Louis. He just brought a great deal of humor in his performance to the role.
Yeah, it's something that Frank Agrama really liked, I think, was the sort of overly literal responses from Louis Nichols.
It kind of lightens up the scene because Vince is obviously a character who takes everything too seriously. He's brings a lot of weight to the role, and we wanted to lighten that up a bit.
And certainly the original series had its share of goofy dialogue moments, so it's definitely within the Rahboeteck universe.
Now we've got Scott Bernard back here, and in the last scene of the original Rahboeteck series, he was flying towards the moon, and so now you see him in the vicinity of the moon.
And yeah, you'll notice always when we have the older characters coming in, you're getting the older theme too. It's kind of, it's very intentional. Whether it's Scott or Rick, you always hear Upio's theme.
Was that a balancing act for you, consciously, or?
Yeah. I think it was. I mean, I really tried to set that up that way, But all the characters, there's many times where I've talked about this, the leitmotif score, where all the characters have themes and such.
Right.
And we're coming up to the part where I have my one moment of silence. Up to this moment, it's been wall-to-wall music. And this was my one kind of reprise.
And now here we have Iona Morris playing Dr. Jean Grant, the wife of Captain Vince Grant. And these two characters, Vince and Jean, are actually holdovers from Rahboeteck the Sentinels, the incomplete television series that attempted to continue Rahboeteck back in 1986. And you'll notice that the characters are back again, but they've been drastically redesigned. One of the reasons is that Bowie Grant, he was originally of mixed heritage in the original Southern Cross series. However, in Rahboeteck continuity, I just wanted to bring this all a little bit more consistently, and so we had Vince Grant redesigned so that he looked a little bit more like Bowie as he appeared in the Southern Cross. and though obviously he's off camera for this film, so it's just Vince and Gene by themselves.
Marcus Rush?
And here's the reunion of Marcus and Scott, where Marcus thought Scott was long dead, and this is the one real touching wartime scene where, unfortunately, he discovers that his sister hasn't survived.
With my solo violin.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were ever soloing the solo violin, but I liked it, and
A little
that was
ham-fisted, but it's nice.
I like it. I know it's sometimes obvious, but it kind of worked. And Maya, my violinist, did a great job there for me.
Maya Jasper.
Maya Jasper, yes, not Maya Sterling. They happen to have the same name, and she was always charmed by the idea that there was a Q in the film called Maya. This is also where I had a different ending too that was a little more mysterious or something, I think, and kind of clipped that out. One of the few rewrites you've asked for.
I think it was because of where we were headed with the next scene after this.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good call. It's just one of those interesting moments where what I had written there was cool too. It's just kind of, yeah.
But I really like the cue that you wrote for this scene.
Yeah,
the mysteriousness of it all.
And this is one of the ones that unfortunately did not end up on the CD. I mean, there just wasn't enough space, and you just have to lose some stuff when you're putting together CDs.
I really like the way the mood lighting of the sequence turned out.
She's a robot, and she looks broken.
It's a little nod that this guy might be a bit too much of an otaku himself.
Well, I always love it whenever you kick a robot to get it working. It's
Yeah, I always thought of Louis as the guy who would probably collect anime just like the rest of us, and probably love having a robotic girlfriend.
Well, who wouldn't?
Well, I guess.
Whoa, we're learning more about each other now.
Cut that.
Robotic girlfriends.
You misunderstand me. It is the neutron S missile.
This is where we get the first lines of Chase, with Chase talking.
That's right. And, interestingly enough, I met Chase Masterson for the very first time at Comic-Con while I was writing the script for Rahboeteck Shadow Chronicles, and it was before she was cast in the project.
She's also the reason I got involved in the project. She's the one that introduced me to Tommy and got me involved.
It all revolves around Chase.
Yes.
And here's a little nod to the original series again. You'll notice that Ariel was walking away from the Jeep that she was last seen riding in the last episode of Rahboeteck.
This can't be happening again.
Oh, I love doing those little crescendo-y things and adding a little kind of warp music, I guess, if you want to call it that.
And you'll notice through this foreshadowing that Ariel among the Invid is very special, that in the original series she was able to foreshadow Invid attacks. However, you'll notice that she has this quality again, but on a grander scale, where she'll notice attack from someone else, and she continues to be in connection with her mother, the Regis. And so she plays a very important role for the humans in that she can foresee things.
There's the Jeep in the background.
Yeah,
yep,
there it is. We get to this scene. This is one of my favorite scenes, musically speaking. It's one of those few moments where I get to project into the future what a character's maybe possible other side is. In this case, Janice and her connection to the Haydenites. You don't hear it just yet, but in a moment here, you'll start to hear the Haydenite march up in the very high winds and harp and stuff. And again, because you haven't heard the Haydenite march until you watch the whole movie, you start to hear it later, but you're hearing it now above Janice. A little foreshadowing. I love to do that with music, being able to play with a character's insides or what's going on with them emotionally or what could be going on with them with a musical kind of vague language. Yeah.
Now with Louis, what was kind of funny was you'll notice sometimes he'll have abrupt changes in his thinking and consciousness. And the way we achieved this was actually in the editing room, where we took different takes from actually different days of Eddie Ferguson, the actor, reading these lines. And so it flowed right into just his very volatile nature of thought.
They have lived quietly in peace for centuries.
You know, the point of whether Janus was created from half human, half Haydenite technology, or all Haydenite technology, was the source of a really big argument when we were developing the script. I don't know if you remember that, Tom.
Yeah, I remember that.
I had felt that her cooperation with the humans would be more dramatic if she was just Haydenite, but you had this grand scheme that I planned for that I wasn't aware of,
but it actually, the solution you ended up with worked, and this was also partly because we have to deal with folks who are just totally slaves to continuity. We had to write this as a new Janus, as opposed to the one seen in the Sentinels.
Right.
There has to be some sort of a connection, but my human brain...
And, it all works very well. Essentially, she's a new character, but she has some of the heritage of the Janus that was described in the novels and from the Sentinel series.
Right. Yeah, we were certainly playing with the Sentinel series much looser than we did with the animated television series.
Now, one thing that passed by really quickly is that on the screen, you'll notice that there's a lot of misspelled English in there, and we just associate this with what's called in anime English, where you have animators from a foreign nation animating your footage, and sometimes their grasp of English may be different than what you'd be accustomed to.
It's funny.
Yeah.
English?
Yeah, English.
I remember in the original series, you'd every once in a while catch the glimpse of a computer screen. It'd just have nonsense, like if mice could swim, they'd play by the sea or something like that.
That was actually thought ahead of.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That was actually planned out. Yeah, it's like Jabberwocky.
We got some drunken singers.
Yeah, and apologies to the late Opio Minucci, Arlen Oberon. For what we've done to their music, but it's a nice little touch.
It is. And this is something you had Matt do. I remember Matt Friedman is our music editor on this project, and it was something I was not involved with, I believe, and it was just something that you had him edit in for the scene. It was, very cool.
Yeah, and I had originally envisioned this scene as sort of a raucous celebration, the liberation of the Earth, so drunken soldiers singing, it works perfectly, I think.
Yeah. And then we get Janus's song coming up soon here, too.
Yeah, there's a line of Janus's that didn't make it into the film where she says that she, finds the process of matching vocal harmonics to be a challenge, which sort of set up her karaoke coming up later and also her working with Louis uncovering the Haydenites' jamming frequency. But, it just plays into her nature, into her character that she would be fascinated by these sort of human activities, as she says earlier.
It kind of reminds me of Data with the whole Star Trek thing. Because remember, he had a problem trying to play violin, like a famous violinist.
That's funny. I never thought of it that way, but I think that she's a much better singer than Data is.
Yeah. Now what you've got here is the first rumblings of and foreshadowings of trouble in our new triangle of Scott, Ariel, and Marcus, where you discover that, of course, darn it, he just can't keep this girl away, his new love, who just happens to be Invid, but he hasn't told any of his new friends that he's met here. And Marcus still harbors this resentment over the death of his sister, which he blames on Invid. So it's like this classic rift that hasn't come to a head yet, that Scott is obviously concerned that he's going to have to deal with soon.
Maybe it's the singing. Janus?
Yeah, I remember Chase coming over and us working on these tracks, getting it ready to go into the studio to record some of this stuff. It was, we also had a lot of versions, didn't we? We had a kind of a, what did we have? We had a bossa nova or something? We had different versions of this song.
Yeah, it was, it took you a while before we settled down on this kind of loungy version for
Yeah, well, that happens. I just don't know if we were totally clear what we wanted to do. We just knew we wanted Chase to sing here, but the style of it was kind of, we just hadn't landed on it,
What? Don't look at me, buddy. You heard the lady. Trust a woman's intuition.
I really don't remember what the other... There was one that was kind of a Nine Inch Nails run. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
It was actually not bad, but it just didn't fit the mood of the scene.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I startled you, Scott, but you're the only one I can trust.
You know, we actually had to cut this much shorter. We were originally going to have them be bothered by the soda machine again on the way to their room.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was actually storyboarded, and we put it in the animatic, and when we saw it, it just totally threw off the urgent nature of the scene. It was like, are you supposed to laugh, or are you supposed to be concerned with these characters?
Right. Yeah, I totally forgot about the soda machine. We had it in earlier, in an earlier scene.
It's one of those things you just try and it just doesn't work, no matter how cute it is. And now you'll notice another little visual nod. If you look, you'll notice these mounds all over this former Invid world, and you'll notice they're bunched up in little groups of threes. It's a little hard because they're far in the distance, and this is a little bit of a mysterious connection between SX.83 on Earth and this old Invid homeworld. You know, what kind of connection is there between the two? And also, this is not necessarily Optera, the homeworld that they were on before. This is actually 2 homeworlds ago. So obviously this foe that the Invid had been dealing with, that Ariel is warning Scott about, is very, very old.
What the children of the Shadow do to civilizations who use protoculture.
But why?
Because they fear its awesome power.
After my sister died, Rick and I were like brothers. I owe him
I think this is one of my favorite cues. It's really short. It's only like 15 or 16 seconds or something. Or maybe I'm sorry, 15, 16 minutes, not seconds. And it's just very subtle harp and flute kind of track. And I had a flute player come over and play the track, and it was really nice.
And the interchange between Richard Epcar and Iona Morris here is one of my favorite real moments in the film. It's really nice acting on both of their parts.
Doctor?
There's a lot of people walking in on each other.
Yeah, I know. And then, and she says something about wife's intuition, and then, there's a woman's intuition earlier. I don't know where that... It was overlaps.
It actually happened during the ADR process. We were just... we were having them experiment with different takes just to see which one works better. Sure. And so sometimes there's a little bit of variance from the original script.
Oh, no, I wasn't criticizing there.
Oh, no.
They're rewriting your script. You didn't know?
No, unfortunately, that sometimes happens,
it does.
With voice recording, as you'll have your shooting script, and sometimes what's written down, what looks great on paper, sometimes just sounds different than you expect.
Oh, sure.
And just moving them would use more protoculture than we can afford.
Then our real concern is recovering the protocol.
The one thing I can't get over in the scene is we're in the future, and we've got all these grand spaceships, and Vince is still laid up with a cast that you would see from the turn of the century.
Please, Scott, promise me you'll warn your people.
I'll try.
Hey, Commander Bernard, is that girl from Earth still here? Huh?
Oh, people walking in on each other again.
Yeah,
won't anybody knock?
This comes the first of the interesting bullet time. Right here, where the music actually cuts into 2. It kind of slows down. Basically, it's kind of this very quick thing that slows down, but feels like it's still moving forward. It's kind of a cool little thing.
How you survived the Mars Division massacre? You must have sold them out to the Invid. I bet you even killed Marlene. What?
Not anymore, but it was all earlier that all that was going on.
Marcus, you gotta back off. This won't bring Marcus.
We actually had to go through a couple of takes for the scene because originally it was recorded before it was animated, and everybody was struggling with one another, but the struggle just ended up differently visually. And when we heard them really overacting their struggle, it ended up sounding like they were all constipated, so we had to re-record that.
That wouldn't be good.
Save your explanations for General Reinhardt.
A warning, you say?
Yes, I believe the aliens that attacked Captain Grant are going to attack a space station, maybe Liberty.
And this is the same sort.
That's actually Eddie Frierson playing a completely different voice for the interrogator. So you'll notice that's some of the voice range capabilities that some of our voice actors have, where they'll do two voices and you'd never know it was the same person.
Now, who was Eddie in the original series?
He was originally Lynn Kyle.
Wow.
And now he plays Dr. Nichols and the interrogator.
And the interrogator.
While on Earth, I gained an invid contact.
Yeah, invid contact my ass.
But how else would he know the neutron?
We had an alternate take where he said invid contact my eye, but apparently I guess nowadays it's okay to say ass on TV.
Well, we certainly have them swearing enough. The dams and all sorts of things. It's and in that sense, it's very different than the original Rahboeteck dialogue.
What if Scott's information about the impending attack is accurate?
It's just some sort of invid trick. The Haydenites are our allies. Why would they?
Though if I had an attorney in this day and age, I'd wonder where my cup of coffee or my drink or my call to my lawyer was. If I was in interrogation.
This is one of my favorite little pieces of music. Just has a lot of muscular energy to it. Of course, I also had to get down for that line too, so it was kind of like I just came with it and then figured I had to get out of there.
Is this true?
Yes, that's correct.
That's it! Sir, it's the same aliens that attacked us in the Omicron sector.
If that's the case, General, we should investigate immediately.
Agreed. Now get going, Vince. Janice, I want you to accompany the captain.
I'm afraid our new enemy may be an acquaintance of yours.
Huh.
So, Scott, how much do you trust this invid you befriended?
I trust her completely, sir, and her name is Ariel.
Woof. Yeah.
Here's Ariel.
Yeah.
And
that take actually got a lot more laughs than we expected, and we ended up holding on Vince's reaction shot a little bit longer in the editing room to really highlight that reaction.
Yeah. If I found out I could teleport, I'd probably be doing that trick all the time, too.
Okay, no time to lose. Scott, I want you and Ariel to join me on the bridge of the Icarus.
Allow me.
Does she do that a lot?
What a great line.
Again, got the laughs that we wanted, right?
Yeah.
All ship shadow devices are active.
Now, this is the first time we actually see Space Station Liberty, because it was always mentioned in the original Rahboeteck television series, but you never really got to see it. And we finally do see it.
But not for long.
Yeah.
Human forces moving into range. The battle fortress containing the protoculture matrix is not among them.
Well, this was not foreseen. We are to destroy them.
Now, with the groups of these Haydenite leaders in threes, this is really bringing up the connection of the Children of the Shadow with the Rahboeteck Masters. Just exactly what is that connection? We haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Damage reports coming in. All sections reporting heavy casualties.
No! The first combat defense line has been completely annihilated!
That's impossible.
Captain?
Prepare to fire synchro cannons!
All ships prepare to fire main guns.
Now, this is just one of those great scenes where you see that the humans are now on par with the aliens from the original Rahboeteck series in terms of the magnitude of their firepower in the fleet. But so we had to introduce some kind of Achilles heel so that the human fleet would still be no match for the new enemies, the Haydenites here.
When we were discussing how the Haydenite disruptor works, it was explained to me that it would cause the ships to implode, not explode. And I wasn't sure how that would be done visually, but here I think they did a really great job.
Yeah, it's a little tie-in to the black hole effect from the neutron nest missiles. There's a little connection between the technologies from the Haydenites.
Excellent. Its destruction will add to the success of our mission.
Skull Squadron, launch when ready.
Personally, I like the effect of entering into the spacefold better than exiting.
One hit and our ships just explode. How is that possible?
Estimating losses at 89%, sir.
Can you get me the fleet commander?
Still unable to raise the fleet or Space Station Liberty, Captain.
Damn. Full stop.
Sir?
This is where Captain Grant takes charge.
Yeah, we were wrangling a little bit over how to write the scene to make sure that it looked like he was being assertive and not wimping out.
Right.
This is definitely a scene with the hair color problem.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if I had a choice, this would be one scene that I just have completely redone, because I personally thought that was the worst shot in the whole film. And, you know, after you do all your cuts, at some point, you're always going to be left with your next worst shot, and that was it. I would have preferred to have broken it up into a succession of shots.
Modulation. It's only good for short-range communications, but...
Now here, Dr. Nichols is bragging that he's outfitted Skull Squadron with AM radios. Amplitude modulation.
Yeah. But essentially, it's like going back to a technology which is so crude it's foolproof.
Right, exactly.
Captain Grant needs a better look at the enemy weaponry. So we're going on a little recon mission. Activate your data transmitters and just follow me.
This is another one of those interesting moments where I had to bring in the kind of light humor music, and I think we went through another version, if I recall. Or maybe I never played it for Tommy. I don't know. But, yeah, it's interesting because I've got to get into this battle music, but I'm also kind of doing humor before I get there. It's kind of changing on the dime.
I'm picking up a power surge from the carrier up ahead. Hey, guys, I've never seen anything like that.
Damn it, Louis, give me something to go.
That's a nice bit of Foley right there on the hand.
Somehow the enemy's energy wave caused the ship's reflex furnace to overload and then implode.
But that should not happen. According to my data, the shadow dimensional field completely shields the power source of the ship.
Unless there's something wrong with the shadow device.
Of course! Shut down all the shadow devices!
Sir?
Now! Switch to maneuvering thrusters.
Look at those teeth.
Yeah, it's all about hyperbole and the expressions of the anime characters.
Yeah.
Skull Leader Icarus. What's going on, Captain?
The shadow device has been compromised. That's why the fleet's getting slaughtered. Now fall back!
Understood. Skull Squadron, deactivate shadow devices and fall back to Space Station Liberty.
Commander Sterling, enemy ships are in pursuit and gaining.
I can't get a weapons lock.
Now, this is a scene we're headed into in which Alex sacrifices himself. And Frank particularly liked it because, it presents a character with courage who's willing to give himself up for his friends. There's only one regret I have is I wish that we had prefaced his recklessness a little bit more in the story so that it's more in character that he would do something like this, that there would be a little bit more terror, a little bit more concern from the other characters because they know that it's within his character to do something like this that would get him into trouble. And so I felt it felt just a little bit spontaneous to me, the way he died, but, it was basically to connect some dots so that they would make a discovery about the weakness of the technology and a way they could use it against the Haydenites.
This is an interesting part of the music where there's this giant choir thing that I brought in, but that happened after. It was like one of the last things I had to do, and it just came out really cool sounding. Unfortunately, it also gets involved with some of the dialogue, so I had to pull it back. But on the CD, it's full. Oh, and then there's Frank's additional choir again. Something I didn't do, but he kind of added.
No! Damn you, Alex! No!
And then here comes the moment. I think it's one of the more interesting moments where you get the main title that Upio had written treated like the military taps funeral music. I kind of took the exact same theme and just stretched it out, elongated it, and gave it the feel of taps. But I'm using the notes that Upio had written. And in fact, this is the longest moment in the film that you hear Upio's theme performed. But it's vague. It's something that I don't think occurs to everyone as they hear it.
Now, this shot was actually done twice. Originally, we had both Ariel and Janice standing next to each other in that shot when he says, "Arrest her." And the first question that came up to everyone's mind was, which one? So we had to redo that.
Survive the Neutron S missile test? Sorry, but I'm not buying it. Get her off my bridge and throw her in the bridge.
And this was also edited down for pacing as well. That whole walkover of those guards was originally like a 10-second long walk. It was like, what was all that animated for?
With all due respect, Captain, I went over the calculations with Janice myself. I don't believe she could possibly...
Easy, Louis. If I didn't know you better, you'd be arrested too.
You know, for a second, I'm thinking, wow, I don't like this Vince Grant guy.
Is that Mark Hamill's voice, or is that...
That's Mark Hamill. Yeah, so at this point, this is really the character of his that gets the most lines.
Who does the other Haydenite?
I believe it's Dan Warren and Eddie Fearson do the other Haydenites.
Nice.
You know, when we were writing the lines for the Haydenites, we actually used the names from the Sentinel series, but they never referred to themselves by those names.
Yeah, we had Veet and we had Volcar, but those names never come up in dialogue.
Oh, now I get this Ark theme. It was interesting because, we have this Archangel ship, and I was thinking, well, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it doesn't sound anything like that, of course, but I was thinking that.
Louis, search the ship.
And with the interior of the vessel, or the space station in the design, we just wanted to have something where it just seemed completely gargantuan, and that this is where the fleet is serviced and built.
Dock with the Archangel. Tell the crew to evacuate everyone on the station to the Archangel.
There may be a slight problem, Captain.
One of the issues that we did have is that with a station of this magnitude, obviously it had to be populated, but basically with our resources, we didn't have the time to have a whole set of scenes and crowds, everyone all over the place. And so we resorted to a lot of sound effects tricks to make it sound like it was more populated than it really was.
Hey, the Haydenite March.
Yeah, I like that.
There's the march that you finally get to hear that was earlier first heard when Janice is in the lab. But that time it's played, kind of big and mean.
They're faster and more maneuverable, and their weapon systems pack a big punch. Otherwise, they're just like the old alphas. We're just gonna have to go back to the old basic seat-of-your-pants dogfighting skills.
Yeah, this was a design where we had some booster packs added to the alpha fighters so that you'd have some modified Veritechs, harkening back to the modifications done in the original series. But, however, in that one shot, they're not there. And the only reason why we took them out was so that they could thumbs up against one another, because when we had them in the shot, all you saw was metal. Pilots didn't see one another. And actually, so far, not many fans have caught that. But yeah, that's stuff that you don't find out until the stuff is actually modeled and shot.
And there was some discussion of doing a completely new mecha design for the...
Yeah, we had a brand new design, which was the Gamma Fighter. And we were wondering whether to introduce it, but it just didn't fit in with the whole arc, the story plot of them being at a disadvantage to the Haydenites. And so instead of just having another new technology just come up out of thin air, we instead had them improvise a little bit more with what they had.
Impressive. We can use your help evacuating the station.
Of course.
Should I help with the evacuation as well, sir?
No, Scott, you're with me.
You know, when this film was screened in the theater in Los Angeles, people actually cheered when they saw the Cyclones.
Yeah, it was like, ooh.
Yeah.
You know, Jason Netter thought ahead to this. He thought the Cyclones were really cool, and he said, you know, whatever we do, we have to figure out how to get Cyclones in the story. And of course, in space.
Right, yeah. It was certainly a challenge for me, thinking, okay, we've got this great big space battle. Where the heck are we going to have guys on motorcycles? But fortunately, the base is very large, as Tommy was saying, and so they've got to use Cyclones to get across it.
Yeah, because walking across this entire space station to their destination would be like trying to go through LA International Airport.
Just don't tell my wife I've been writing one. No, sir.
Yeah, there was a lot of oohs, ahs during this transformation sequence from the audience when they saw it for the first time.
This is one of my favorite scenes too. Favorite scenes musically and favorite scenes just the muscular part of this.
The lights going out was actually done in an alternate take. The first shot we had in bright daylight, and it just didn't feel ominous enough, and so we had this sequence actually re-rendered with a lot of lights out in darkness.
Don't forget that this scene was actually longer, too.
Yeah, it actually was, and we'll get to that point in a bit.
Yeah.
I want to know why your people lied to me about the technology I passed on to the humans.
You were provided only what was needed to fulfill your purpose. Now you will give us a location of the protoculture matrix.
It appears not all...
This was one of the last things we recorded. I remember we were finishing up with Prague, and it was our second day, and Alan came in right at the end, and this was one of the last things we got done. And I don't know if we ever actually got it, but we got something. So,
and here we see the Haydenite's true nature for the very first time. Though in hindsight, I kind of wondered how he was going to attack Scott, without having a body. Was he going to bonk him on the head with some sheet metal?
This means nothing.
Oh, we had to totally redo the scene because originally the animators completely misinterpreted some of the appendages on the Haydenites, and they all ended up looking like giant penises. Of course, Ford didn't know about this, but Scott did.
Yes, I do remember having this conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agreed with that. I didn't really see it that way, but hey.
It wasn't that way in the script.
Sure it wasn't.
Yeah. And you'll notice here that Janice is suddenly behind a big giant piece of wreckage where she wasn't before. And that was because we cut a big sequence out of there. We were in the middle of production on it, and it wasn't quite finished. And we were just in a rush to complete production, and we had to chop out an action sequence with
Janice.
Janice, yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm pretty certain I wrote music for, but not there anymore.
How well they fight when they can't cheat.
Visual targeting systems activated.
Again, one of my favorite action sequences.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about it. It just had this sense of drama that the other ones were more fighting, whereas this one had a little more, we're getting the upper hand kind of feel.
Relax, I got it. Okay?
And the introduction of the taiko drums.
Yeah, very nice.
Which on the CD, this track sounds completely different again. I had remixed it and added a choir and did a bunch of stuff to it just to kind of give it a little more oomph.
Originally, we had that done with both characters yelling that line, both Maya and Marcus. Oh. But we felt it looked a little bit better just with Marcus on his own, so we had that edited a little bit differently.
And coming up here, we try and really give you the scale of the Neutron S missiles.
Oh, yes, this is another one of those interesting tracks where I got it really big and nice, but there's a joke that comes up here, and they had to fade the music out because it was a very interesting... one of those ones that should have been treated differently, I think, but from my point of view, musically.
Yeah, it was the elevator gag, and the music was just a little bit too heavy for the humor.
I probably should have rewritten it. It was just one of those last-minute things that just didn't get done.
That is the voice of Melanie McQueen.
Yay.
Nice.
Now, Vince Grant's serial number here, 030185, is also the first air date of the original Rahboeteck series, March 1st, 1985.
Yeah, unfortunately, the animators got his age wrong. They typed in 36, which was actually in the guidelines where we said the guy was supposed to be in his 50s, but draw him to look like he's in his 30s, and I think that's where they pulled the age 36 from, fortunately. But it's hard to read on the standard def version, so...
Yeah.
Love this musical theme right here.
Yeah, this is the same one that was in the control room. Yeah, both those are pretty cool.
The power output is now sufficient for operation of the hyperspace fold system.
Evacuation complete, sir.
Louis, status report.
The reflex furnace is online. I just hope the rest of this ship is space-worthy.
We will find out soon enough.
I think coming up next is one of my favorite presentations of the Haydenites theme. Just kind of comes together. Sometimes you do these things and you don't really, you're working it out and something just all clicks together. But right here, after the Haydenites meet, we have a big, huge theme. The march comes in. There it is.
Now you notice there's different different Haydenite ships of different scales. And you'll also see that the Icarus is following the Archangel. This was one ship we just were a little reluctant to throw away just yet. Yeah.
I was surprised. I saw that and now I know why.
Oh, yeah, we get into this big, long theme. Hey, Tommy, remember my cowbell?
Yeah, I remember that.
It's actually a wood block, but yeah, we had this whole conversation about my cowbell or wood block, and I think I pulled it out for part of it. This cue, started as a kind of a percussion bed for a longest time. I just hadn't written all the themes, but every single major theme gets presented here in the next 3 or 4 minutes, Oh, there it is. The wood block.
No, it works.
Yeah, it works.
Maya, there are too many of them!
But I you didn't like it, though, right? Is that what it was?
No, I think it was just of how much.
Yeah.
Now, this shot here looks a little stiff, and this is just simply a result of running out of production time. The animators had to wrap production. And this was because we were hitting a production crunch, because originally we were contracting the studio DR Movie for about a 75-minute movie, but we had actually extended it out to 85, and we ended up with nearly 90 in the final result. But given the time we had, I'm really amazed by how much DR Movie delivered. And carrying that cockpit right there, that's another little subtle homage to the original Rahboeteck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here's where Melissa comes in. This is one of those really interesting moments where I said to Tommy, I said, why don't we pull out all the sound effects and do just a musical moment here that actually plays against the scene. He goes back in, and sure enough, we could have gone back into action music here, but I said, let's not do that. Let's try to do something a little more profound. I just had him come over to my studio and play the track, and everyone seemed to like it.
Yeah, and the mix, we ended up pulling everything almost completely out, and it just worked to heighten the dramatism.
Yeah. And Ariel seemed, this is actually a Tommy ad. I had used a different version, and he used the one with the flute. On the CD, you'll hear a different version versus that one. And also, this is one of those things, from a composer point of view, if you've got explosions in the screen, there's just no reason to put music there. So at the end of this, I just build it up and then get out of the way because there's nothing for me to do right there.
Now, the Neutron S missile detonating here would form a black hole. That's the error, but we don't actually get to see it.
Yeah, you just see a brief glimpse of it imploding before it explodes. And now what you see here, this final scene between Marcus and Marlene, we actually had to go through 2 takes because the animators had completely misinterpreted the storyboards and had originally drawn all the characters naked. And so
I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that now.
And so when you had
sister and brother naked,
brother and sister going Marlene, and
yeah,
they were
that wasn't working.
It was just the wrong tone for the scene.
Yeah, I remember that.
I guess for you didn't see that, huh?
No, I didn't. I didn't see the naked scene.
Yeah, so we had to fix that. And you actually had to go through 2 takes on your music, Scott.
Yeah, I have a whole other cue right here. I think it's just sitting on my hard drive.
No, I am Ariel, daughter of the Regis.
But old Rahboeteck fans know her as Marlene, so a little joke there.
Yeah.
Very little.
Too many Marlenes.
Now, you've just given away the name of Shadow Chronicles 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Twitchy eye again.
Twitchy eye.
Yeah.
This was a really nice cue. This came out... Well, right there, Tommy keeps thinking that she's saying sunrise. I don't know if I hear that.
No, that's what it sounded like to me.
Or is it right here? It's one of these scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, one of those times where I gave Melissa something to work with, and I just let her go do her thing, and she came back with these tracks that are just really cool.
And with a little luck, Admiral Hunter will be there waiting.
Agreed. I'm confident the Archangel is in capable hands. Good luck on your new mission, Captain Grant.
Thank you, sir.
You know, it's a nice resolution scene, but the way it just goes through in quick succession between all the characters, it felt a little bit like the end of a summer camp movie to me.
Yeah, it's a little stilted, and it's you want to arc all of the characters and give them some sort of resolution, but in this case it was a little too pat.
Yeah, but it still worked, and we kind of tightened it up in the editing room as best we could.
Now, that scene earlier where Maya was putting her head on Marcus's shoulders, I originally thought that Marcus would just reach out to hold her hand, but it
actually we did have that shot, and I deliberately cut that out because I wanted to leave their relationship just a little bit up in the air. To leave some room for somewhere for the 2 characters to go.
Cool.
This is a scene where we have Chase sing again. And if I recall right, we were going to have her sing the outro, and it was going to go into the full song, wasn't it? Is that what we were going to do?
Yeah, we were going to do that, but it just quite didn't work for the end credits.
Yeah, actually, in one of my drafts, I had her singing a Yellow Dancers song where the mood was totally different. It was much darker, and she sang, "Look up because the sky will fall on you," and it's a totally different mood than a more optimistic "We will win," which is what it ended up here.
Yeah. Well, we never really did we did the dance version of "We Will Win," but here what we did is we also recorded a kind of an outro with the orchestra. So that's all a new recording, and then that's the original opening title. So it was an interesting little bumper thing, but we had recorded this kind of dance mix version of "We Will Win."
Yeah, and it ended up that it was just best to end with the closing title with the original theme again.
Yeah, especially with the way, I think with this, visually, it's kind of pulling out slowly, and you kind of go through the whole planets thing again. I don't know, it just has that same feel as the music as original from the opening of the movie. And then when we put it up against the club track, just had a different feel. You know, it didn't pulse the same way, I guess.
Yeah, and also it was because we had swapped a different ending in. We had originally ended on a different sunrise shot that DR Movie had animated, and I instead thought that it would be better to end it with the opening but in reverse, and so we had some rotoscoping done to take reflex point off the Earth because the Invid were gone. So and then we ran the shot in reverse. So essentially, this is where the film had opened, but backwards.
Yeah, it's very cool. Now this was Matt's edition, I believe, or was this you that picked this?
No, this was actually Matt who had done the editorial on the music at the end, but it's very nice and seamless.
Yeah, this track came out nice. It's one of those things that kind of covers a lot of ground and does various things. You know, it's got drama, but it's not over dramatic, and it's a nice little nice choice. Sometimes I'm not involved in these end credit choices and what music is going to be used there, and in this case, I was very happy, and it, you know, covers a lot of ground. It kind of gets a little bit of the main title, it gets a little bit of Ariel's theme. There's the main title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing that was nice with the ending here was we got to give credit to every last in-betweener, which with the original television series, because the end credit time was so short, we just never had time to credit everyone who worked on the film. And this time we got to be a little bit more complete, even crediting some of the original animators or conceptual designers of Rahboeteck The New Generation.
Yeah, in television you never get the time to give credit where credit is due, especially in animation, where there's so many people working on the projects.
Also, in television, they mash it over to the corner where you can't... You're like, okay, the name, they whiz by, and it's mashed to where it's amorphically... You can't even read the names, you know, and they're blowing by really fast, yeah.
And by the way, this was how I spent my Christmas. While everybody was out on Christmas break, I was rendering the... end credits on my computer at home.
Which we had to change after I recorded, because I recorded after that, if you recall. I couldn't record during Christmas.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, well, we got some different names. And
and then I had to, And so this is not even the first version of the end credits that was cut in.
Yeah. There's all my orchestrator friends helping out. Yeah, the Ariel theme came out nice. I think this is one of the themes that can really be kept around for a while.
So the music's now available from Vri Saraband. We just didn't know yet when the film was done.
Yeah.
And our book is
Your book
Stonebridge.
is there, yeah.
DC Comics, but we didn't have time to insert Stonebridge quite yet.
All right.
And now with the Legal Block, it's our time to say adieu. And we'd like to thank all the people who worked hard on this and all the fans who've supported us. So thank you very much. This is Tommy Yoon signing off.
This is Ford Riley. Thanks to everyone, and goodbye.
This is Scott. Thanks for listening.